Hi, I'm Rainer, and welcome to my train room. So, my last video, I built this building right here. It's a building for my maintenance crews in my rail yard. Rail yard extends that way. But while I was building that building, in that video, I mentioned that one of the things that I had was a kit for a crane that I want to put in there, just so they have equipment to park there and it makes it look real. And I remember visiting the ACR rail yard with my dad when I was a kid, and he pointed out the big hook to me. And I think a lot of rail yards had the big hook or multiple of those. And it was just a big crane that they had there for when they had wrecks up the line and things like that. So some time ago, I was at a train show and I picked up this pair of cars in a box, got them for really cheap. Just a large crane, an Athearn crane, and this little maintenance car that goes with it. And the maintenance car has KD couplers on it. The crane has no couplers on it. It looks like it was maybe partially assembled by somebody, but I'm not quite sure. I hope all the parts are in it because it's not in its original box either. So, but like I said, I got it for a really good price. So what I'm thinking of doing is repainting this and relettering this to make it be a stand-in for an Algoma Central big hook crane, and so I could have it park in that area. I've had this box sitting around for quite a while on my shelf, so I thought let's do something with it. Right now it's a very shiny red plastic and black plastic, and well, cranes like that were not very shiny and clean because they worked hard. So let's see what I can do with this thing. I'll take it over to the workbench and pull all the parts out and see what's there, what isn't. And, like I said, I'll have to paint it and then see what it ends up looking like once I get to that point. So let's see what I can do with this thing. So the first thing with any of these projects that you get from the train shows, especially when it's kind of a box like this that's been gone through, you kind of have to figure out whether you have everything you're supposed to have. And so at least I have some assembly instructions for the crane, and we will see what is needed. So let's pull these out of the box first. So I have this maintenance car. Looks like it's supposed to have a side on both sides. It's missing one. I'll see what I can do with it. I may have some bits of another car like this, or maybe I'll just put a flat car in there, but I think I can do something with this to make it look more believable. So let's see what we can do. But first thing is the crane. Here's the hook for the crane, so I have that. I have some string. Looks like black fishing line to me, but it would work just fine. This is the support, I think, for the crane that goes up on here. There's the other side for my car, all repairable. What do we have in here? More railings. Assume those are railings for that car. And what's in this bag? This bag has a whole lot of nothing. Looks like this is a different hook for the crane. Okay, so that comes apart relatively easily, so that's good. I can repaint that because it's going to be black. And this, I think, is supposed to swivel, but does not swivel very easily. It's very, very stiff. So I'm thinking that could be a problem. I'll have to figure out why. I'm thinking somebody just tightened up a screw too tightly. So what I'm going to do is I am going to have a look at what I can find in some old photos of the ACR, their big crane, of what I need to look at and what I need to do with it. And I know this is going to have to be painted black. And then I'm going to take a look and see what kind of car they had accompanying it. I think I'll end up using this, but it's going to have to be painted and re-lettered. So I guess the first thing will have to be to clean this off. Just make sure there's no oil or anything on it, paint it black, and then with this, figure out what color I need to paint that. And then once I've got the paint on those and it's drying, I'm going to figure out how to make this work a little more smoothly because, well, it doesn't make much sense to have it be so incredibly stiff. And then I'm going to have to figure out how this was supposed to work. Okay, so there's a little crank that goes in turning these things. Probably shouldn't lose that. Okay, so off to painting I will go with these, and then get back to you with progress on it. So I painted both cars with some semi-gloss Tamiya paint with the airbrush. The reason I use semi-gloss is with when you're using these water slide decals or decals, if you're preferring the American pronunciation, they stick better to a semi-gloss or somewhat shiny surface better than a completely flat surface. I guess it traps less air behind the backing of it. And so, and I'm going to be painting them all with dull coat anyway afterwards, like a matte finish. So for now, the semi-gloss is okay. So I did this. Now I'm thinking of changing this around actually because I looked and the boom car that the ACR used, I'm not trying to match anything exactly, but the boom car they used did not have a little mini caboose top on it. So I'm probably going to pop this off and put sides on it. And what I noticed online was they had on the other end of their boom car, at least one of them, it had sides with a gap in between. Of course, the support for the boom, which this has to go right here. But on the other end, they had things like an oil tank and some storage bins and things like that. So I've just 3D printed some little detail items that may not use all of them, but some things to put in here at the other end of the car to make it look like a work car at the other end of the boom. So there's room once it's once it's kind of by the crane like this, once couplers are in, there's room at the other end to do things like that. So I think I'm going to do that. I also painted the cab here, and I've put a couple of ACR logos on it. And these are actually printed on this paper, and you can get this paper in two different kinds. And this one is white, and then you can get some that it looks the same, but there's white and then there's clear. So this one, when I paint it, whatever's printed on there black, whatever is not printed shows up white. So you'll see these numbers when I transfer them to this, it will show up white, and then the black blacks out around it, because one of the issues with normal printers, laser or inkjet, but you can't print white with them. And so fortunately with black train cars, black locomotives, anything with a black background, there's a workaround. You can just use this white paper and print the background around it black and put it on here. And then if there's any white edges, touch them up with a little bit of black paint. And then once you do the matte finish over top and the weathering, it kind of blends in and disappears. The other type of this paper is the backing is white, but when you pull it off, the whatever is not printed on shows through clear. And I will be using that on another, like a placard on a car that's going to be yellow, and I want black writing on it, so I could print it on that clear backing, and then the black writing will go on there, and then the yellow will show through the clear. So there's two different kinds of this stuff. I've used this before on some of my bulkhead flat cars, and it works pretty well, especially on a car that's weathered. It disguises the edges. For some reason, this time it kind of peeled some of the stuff off. I'm not sure if I put too much clear coat on it to seal it or not enough, but what you do with that paper is you print onto it, and then you spray it with a clear finish to seal it in to make it waterproof. So that's the idea. So anyway, I will show you what I end up doing with this. And unfortunately, because of the edges on it, I will just have to touch those up with black paint. Once I put the dull coat, it will all disappear and it will blend in and it'll look like it was just the numbers painted on there. But right now it looks a little bit messy, but that's fixable. I think maybe my knife is not quite as sharp as it should be, and it was kind of peeling the surface of it. I think that may be the issue. So I'll have to get a fresh blade for the next set of lettering that I end up cutting out of that paper. Now, this paper has a bunch of other writing on it that I also did, because I decided that while I'm doing this, I'm going to actually do a whole maintenance away train. So I have a number of other cars, a ballast hopper, a water tank car, a couple of old box cars that I'm going to fix up to put in there, and those will be coming up in other videos. Okay, so I'll just leave those to dry, and then I'll come back and touch up the edges with some black paint and give the whole thing a coat of a matte finish to seal it all in, and then I'll end up doing some more weathering on top to just kind of hide everything else. So at this point, I have it pretty much all assembled, functioning, ready for the final weathering. So I thought I'd just take a look at it with you before I go and do that with the airbrush. I'll probably do a little bit of some, little rust stains and stuff like that on the boom car with some acrylic paints, and then I'll go and use the airbrush. And with the airbrush, I'll probably use a very diluted mix of Tamiya dark iron and maybe some brown mixed in to kind of give it that dirty, maybe a little bit of a rusty hue over top. It seems to work really well, just kind of misting that on. Let's take a look at this boom car first. And the boom car that came with it, it originally had the cab on this end that I decided to pop off. And interestingly, when I looked online, I realized that although this kit was sold originally as an Athearn blue box kit that you had to assemble yourself, more recently Athearn was selling the exact same crane and boom car, minus the cab in at least the examples I saw, as a pre-assembled ready-to-run kit for a lot more money. So take your pick. It's the exact same crane. I would suggest, if you want one of these in your layout, go and look at train shows and see if you can pick up a used one. Find one of, like I did, one of these older blue box kits, because it's actually the same crane as that they use in the newer, supposedly ready-to-run kit, except you don't even get the enjoyment of assembling it yourself. So I kind of don't see the point of that, but that's just me. So in the newer kits, I noticed that the boom car that comes with it is this same car, minus of course my stuff, but they do, at least the samples that I saw, didn't have the little cab on the end of it. And in reality, if you look at this car, this is just a normal Athearn blue box flat car, 40-foot flat car that has these sides on it and that little box on the end of it. So I'm actually thinking I can use some of the ideas I used on here to maybe turn this flat car into another kind of maintenance away car, not a boom car, but another maintenance away car. And so what I did on this, just kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier in the video, I have this, oil tank or fuel oil tank or diesel tank or whatever you want to call it on the end. I have some storage crates and a couple of barrels and oxyacetylene tanks, things like that. So all of these detail items at the end, other than the palette underneath that came from a recent Keybury kit I did, the rest of them were all 3D printed. Just printed them out and painted them up and glued them into place. So it gives a little bit of variety to this car, just kind of random things. And I didn't copy this after any exact car. I just kind of made it up, but I got my inspiration from seeing pictures of these kind of cars online. And it had these sides at the front that were, the styrene sides for the car, but on the back, I just cut some wood stakes to put into the pockets here and some boards and glued those on and painted the whole thing black. So at this point, and of course I put metal wheels on it, a couple of KD couplers. It came with the KD couplers, but I left those on, put some metal wheels on it, and I also added a little bit of lead shot at the bottom just to make it a little bit heavier, so it tracks a little bit better. For the crane, there's a few things that I needed to do. Well, obviously I had installed all the string in here, figured it out from the drawings, and there are 2 hooks, and there are actually 3 things you can operate with the crank. The first is the boom, the raise and lower the boom, and then there are 2 separate positions for the 2 hooks at the end. And the crank itself is, it isn't a super tight fit. You put in there and it's positioning. I mean, you're not going to be moving this up and down all the time. It's most likely on most people's railroad, it's going to be left in a single position most of the time, unless they're trying to reposition it for some sort of a diorama or whatever, because, I mean, after all, you're not really needing this crane to lift things. The other thing that I needed to do was, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this was really stiff to turn, and it moves much more easily now, but it doesn't move freely, because otherwise it would just swing around all over the place. The other thing I noticed was that this rib right here, when you tried to turn it, rubbed on these little molded in hinges for access plates or whatever they are on the deck here, and just kind of scraped on it a little bit. And I don't know why. I don't know if the molding was a little bit off or what. So I just took the Dremel and just ground a little bit off of that, and now it spins all the way around and it doesn't hit anymore. Now I tested this thing on the tracks, and in real life, if you drop the boom in between this, in the boom car in between here, this crane is supposed to swing on the corners so that it goes around the corners and that it can track. If you put it on the track right now and you put it in between there, this is still stiff enough to turn that when you try to go around a corner, instead of the boom swinging like this, it tips this car over. So if you're going to run this behind the train, at least the way mine is, you need to lift the boom up and out of these holders so that it can swing freely, because, yeah, I can't see how I can make that actually spin freely enough the way this is built to make sure that this car doesn't get tip off on anything but the gentlest corner. But besides that, I think it's turning out okay. I think with a little bit of weathering, it'll be a great addition to my layout. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, when I was looking at photos of this, of the maintenance away equipment on the ACR, I kind of got inspired and dug through my boxes of unbuilt cars and unused cars, and I found some more outside brace wood box cars. I found an old tank car, and an old hopper car and things like that. Another caboose that I haven't built. It's an undecorated one. It's a used kit that somebody had started painting, didn't do a very good job, and then just sold it. So I bought it for cheap. So I'm thinking of actually, in upcoming videos, taking some of those cars and converting them into more maintenance away equipment, kind of inspired by the pictures of the ACR fleet. So that's kind of one of the things I'm going to do in upcoming videos, just so you guys know. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the kind of the details on the weathering and things like that on these two and get them on the layout. So I have the crane and the boom car completed, at least enough for now. In the future, what I'd like to do is probably add some extra grab rails and steps to this cab of the crane, because, well, if you look at these cranes, they have these little steps on the bottom platform, but none of them actually line up with the doors where the crane operator is supposed to get into the crane. So I'm kind of thinking it would be good to add some rails and some steps at some point if I want to get into more detailing on it. I also just noticed that I forgot to put the car number on my boom car, but oh well. At this point, I'm happy with how it's looking. I have something to park over there. Little detail that I noticed is this crane is too tall to fit underneath my little awning on my building. So I just have to make sure that I don't shove it in here with the crane first, because it will hit this building. Because it's a little bit taller than a regular box car. It's actually a fairly tall car. So that's okay, not a big deal. I'm actually thinking of creating extra little siding in between here to park the crane and the boom car, and then the rest of my maintenance away cars can park on the main siding here out in front of the building. So I think that's another addition I need to do. I can just put another switch in the track right there and just put a very short little siding, just enough to fit those two cars. But a little bit of weathering, like I did at the end, with a little bit of acrylic paint on it, and then just spraying it with some of that dark iron. I just used a little bit of the Tamiya dark iron, diluted it quite a bit, and mixed in just a little bit of flat brown, and it gives me that kind of a dirty, used look. Takes that intense black out of it, just kind of makes it look kind of a dirty black, and kind of obscures the edges of my lettering, the way I did the lettering as well. So overall, happy with how it's looking. Hopefully this gives you guys some ideas if you're, whatever kind of old cars you pick up, make them your own, make them look unique. There's a lot of these cranes out there and the layouts and everything, but I can guarantee you there's none that look exactly like mine because of the lettering and the paint I did on it. So it looks a little bit more unique, and even though it's just a basic Athearn crane and car, just those little details, even without doing a huge amount to it, makes it more personalized to my layout. So thanks for watching. See you next time.